All right. Hey everyone, it's Xant. It's been a hot minute since I last did a stream. Yeah, I was supposed to do one last week, and I was really looking forward to it, and then I came down with something, and I'm still partially recovering from it. So if I start doing a little bit of coughing, apologies in advance. Oh, Haitian. Yeah, it happens, it's just that time of year. Anyways, we got a lot to go over today, from what I understand. Outside of just GBM, I've also been looking at Gundam Battle Operation 2. Its open beta test started technically midnight today for me, but I really didn't have time to play it yesterday, which I understand was actually for the better, because it ran into a few hiccups on actual launch. Beyond that, the new Fire Emblem, I've got my little mitts on it already. Quite unfortunately, though, as we're all aware, Nintendo is very close to the vest when it comes to games getting streeted early. And I did say that intentionally, streeted, and I didn't mean to say streamed or anything. That's a whole nother beast altogether. You stream a Nintendo game before the street release date? Nah, man, like it doesn't go well. Which is a shame, because I've been enjoying myself, good combat and everything. I'll look into potentially doing maybe kind of like a brief review or something on release day for you guys, but I don't know. It's very difficult to do a JRPG review because it's so subjective, Even Tales of Arise is a very subjective enjoyment factor, right? So, anyways, away from that, let's focus on our big old mecha boys. Yeah. Oh, there's gonna be a lot of stuff, isn't there? Alright, well, let's get cracking. Ain't gonna do itself. Ooh, what happened to... Oh, you know what? My cable's gone. That's what it is. Lovely. Alright, Beast Coin, the Floros. Now, this is a very interesting choice that they put out for the welfare. This is one of those Gunpla that when it hit the gacha originally, a lot of people were like super hyped for it aesthetically, right? And aesthetically, it's a very, very pretty suit. So, with that in mind, totally understand the aesthetic picks for this kind of deal. Custom skin approved. Outside of that, though, let's take a look at what it offers us statistically as a welfare. Alaya Vinyana system, raise your shot attack by 39%. Okay, look, for a welfare, that is a very good boost. Typically, we see 29%. 39%, I think, is the highest we ever have seen on welfare units across the board up to date. So, bueno. Yeah, good cooldown. It's a standard awakening outside of that. Good buff, though. Good buff. It's a shame it doesn't affect the whole squad, but that'd be a little too good for what a welfare is. All right. 3,400 shot attack. Carryover gives us, like, over 4K. We're looking at, like, 4,200. That's crazy good. So this is sitting like 4K, 4,100 or so shot attack after carryover. That puts it definitely into that top like 1 percentile when it comes to welfare heads for shot attack. So no complaints here, great stats. And then long range Gundam type word tags. Long range, alright, that's a workable tertiary. You see it a lot on shot builds. It's available on a good handful of parts. Okay. And then we have the Gundam type tag. That's also a very powerful tertiary tag. Activates a ton of traits across the board. Again, awesome. All right. Let's move on to the torso. Super Galaxy Cannon. Shoulder your special warhead equipped railgun and fire an ultra high speed round. A- power, D pierce. With a cutscene cooldown. Now, for welfare, A-, nice. However, that cooldown, when this is not a bindable EX skill, I'm a little hesitant about it. If this was a B plus power skill and the cooldown was like, I don't know, 18 seconds initial with like 36, 38 base, okay, I could see it all right. But with a cutscene cooldown and it being A minus power non-bindable, it's just an interesting combination. Inherently, I don't think it's going to be terrible. I'd have to see the animation for this. On paper, it looks good. I'm just like, with that cooldown, probably hits like a truck though, considering it's like the signature skill for this suit. Statistically, we're looking at about 1300 or so. Oh no, sorry, I totally misread the numbers on here. We're looking at a token amount of melee. We're looking at about 850, 900 or so. It's not a melee suit, so whatever. For shot, we're looking at like 2100 or so shot attack. That's really, really good. So one thing to remember with torsos when it comes to the frame of your Gunpla, typically we see about 1000 in the post power creep section for welfares. Anywhere between 1000 and like 1100, 1200 in there, that's the standard. Now that's kind of what we expect to see for the primary stat. Once we go up, like 1200 to 1300 to 1400, right, that enters that higher bracket of like we're cooking with like some real fire here. Once you go past that and you're up in like the 1700, 1800 range, right, you just turned on those burners. You got a full flat top going here. This is great stuff. This goes well beyond that. This goes past 2000. As far as welfares go, this is really, really high offensive value for what it is. So that's awesome stuff. The first two parts that I've seen so far are just like raw stats, amazing offensively. So I hope it keeps this trend for the rest of the parts. But that's really cool stuff. I like seeing the torsos get that high. Long range Gundam type word tags again. All right, let's take a look at the arms. It's a good newbie suit, nice EX and good stats. Exactly, right? That's kind of the deal. As far as if you're like a brand new player to this game, or you've started in the last few months and you're kind of struggling for parts or whatever, so far this has got some crazy bang for your buck returns. It's nice. Anyways, Gundam Fluoro's arms. When attacking with physical, enemies shooting damage plus 25%. All this means is if anything you use against your enemy is physical, so that's a physical shot, a physical melee. If you're attacking with a ranged weapon that's physical, or a melee weapon that's physical, that'll activate the actual trait, which is shooting damage plus 25%. So really, even though it'll work on melee or shot physical, you obviously want to use it with shot physical to get the bonus on it. That's available on a myriad of IBO parts, because that was its whole shtick, was all physical stuff. You can also pick it up on a lot of other parts as well. But honestly, as far as welfare suits go, a 25% damage boost mod, that's good. Typically, we'd see 15 to 20%. Sometimes we see the really jank ones where it's a little lower than that, and maybe they'll add some weird activation trait to it. Sometimes we've seen these go up to 30%, but they have an extremely rigorous activation requirement. 25% for attacking with physical on an IBO part? Sign me up. Easy to activate. 25% is nothing to sneeze at on a welfare piece. Nice. Offensively, okay. So we're looking at about 1900, 2000, 1950, 2000 or so melee attack. As far as melee arms go, that's on the super low end for welfares. We typically would want to see, 2900, 3000 above that. But again, this is a shot suit. Moot point. In the shot department, what we're looking at here, 1400 base, and carryover, it's like 2100 or so shot attack. That's really, really good. Typically, when it comes to shot arms, especially on welfares, we'd be looking at anywhere between 1,300 to 1,600. You know, that's like the average bracket kind of deal. Once we go above that, those are like the really good suits. But a lot like the torso, once you go past 2K, that's in that like super high top 1% bracket kind of thing. So that's pretty cool. We got lots of really good offensive value on this. Like I said earlier, this is nice. Long range transformer. Okay. Ooh, excuse me. All right, legs. With power attribute, enemy shooting power reduced by 35%. Okay, so this is only going to activate and be effective for the suit this part is on. So with that in mind, this has very limited mileage. If this part is equipped on one of your support suits, not the suit that you're controlling, you're not going to benefit from the 35% reduction. The requirement of power attribute is also a little bit limiting, as that does restrict you, obviously, having to use a power attributed suit. Easy enough to do, right? 5 or more parts on your suit with the power attribute. But it does open you up to the attribute triangle. You're not able to control your attribute because you have to be power. And also comes with the caveat of, you have to use power. And that can be limiting, especially as a newer player. These kind of traits are kind of wishy-washy. They really have to be like a crazy good trait, like all power reduced by 50% to really turn heads these days. 35% shooting power reduction is really high, but it only works if your power attribute, which is its own can of worms, and it only works on the suit this is equipped onto, not on anything else, which is a whole nother. If you look at the Venn diagram of usefulness, it just kind of keeps shrinking where this has the overlap of being useful, It's okay. It's not a great trait. It's not a bad trait. As far as damage reductions go, 35% is very solid. It's just not, yeah. I think the EX skills has fast animation. Not sure, it's been a while. The animations are fast. The Super Galaxy Cannon freezes time when used, making it better than being bindable. Thank you for the clarification, Alex. Yes, that definitely does make it very good. So one of my biggest issues with the long cooldown with the Torso EX, the Galaxy Cannon, was it had a very long cooldown, a cutscene tier cooldown, but it wasn't bindable. And what that means for the new players, I know all you old veterans that are here with your walking canes and stuff know what I'm going to say. But when a skill is bindable, it means that when you hit the enemy, they're forced into the animation. And once you've made impact, there is no escaping the damage output. Without the bindable tag on a skill, it means that there is a chance the enemy can interrupt. There's a chance they could dodge, all these other things when it comes to the damage output. And that can lower the value of an EX skill depending on factors with it. For example, we have, I think it's just the base X Gundam, where it has its signature backpack skill, where it charges from the moon, fires its beam explosion. The base form of the X, the entirety of it was interruptible. So that entire phase where you're floating up in the air, charging, aiming, and firing, you could get hit and get interrupted. The enemies could move and dodge, all these things, and it really lowered the viability of that skill. Then later on, when we got the double X, it actually froze time during that entire animation, which made that value just skyrocket. Because now there was no way to interrupt, there was no way to evade the damage easily, mind you. So hearing that the Torso EX skill freezes time adds a ton of value to it, even though it's not bindable, because it means that all your damage output's actually going to happen. And that's very important on a skill that has a very long cooldown. The A- power is amazing on a welfare piece. The D Pierce is to be expected with that kind of power attached to it. My biggest issue though is with the cooldown and the non-bindable, but knowing it freezes time, that's an amazing chest DX skill with that for a welfare. My mouth is very dry now. I even had some, I had like 3 glasses of water before the stream started too. I'm like, I'm gonna be a hydrated boy. No, just doesn't work. Anyways, Back to what we're looking at with the legs. The trait, not amazing, but it is a high damage reduction value. Statistically, we're looking at, like, token melee, 550, 600, kind of in that range, whatever, that's a big whoop-de-doo. And keep in mind, legs and backpack, when it comes to the core frame parts, tend to be the lowest defensively statted of the bunch. It's just the way it is. So typically these will see anywhere from, like, I think on really high-end welfares, we've seen like 1,600 plus after carryover, and that's like really nice. Typically, we see about 1,000, 1,100. This obviously, the melee falls far below that because it's a shot part. Thinking about that, the shot stats on this, 1274 base, carryover 6. So this is like 1900 shot attack almost, which is very, very high for a welfare pair of legs. Again, no issue. Offensive stats, this thing's rocking it so far. Long range transformer tags, again, transformer. I didn't really touch on it before. I'll do it again just for anyone that's new. Transformer is a very good tertiary tag, much like long range, much like Gundam type. It's very easy to find on a ton of parts, especially higher end parts, and it activates a lot of traits across the board. With that in mind, a lot of value in this. There's a half second as it's firing, the time resumes, so I'm not sure if you can be knocked out of it at that point. So, when it comes to that, the only way I can see you viably being knocked out of the animation is if there was already something flying at you and it's most of the way to you, because it would have a very small gap to actually do anything, or if the enemy's in the middle of a melee combo or something and they're hitting you. But that also assumes that the skill doesn't have iframes, because we know some EX skills have iframes that aren't listed. Also matters, can you actually even be knocked out of it? Maybe you get a hit of super armor with it. There's a lot of what ifs when it comes to these kinds of skills, and the only way you can ever be 100% sure is if you sit down and really lab it out. Is it really worth it though? Anyways, good offensive stats. The trait is, you know, like I said, meh, not really amazing. And the word tags, workable tertiaries. All right, let's move on to the backpack, the last core frame part here. Long barrel cannons and machine gun. B, power. D, pierce. Low cooldown. Rapidly fire your regular warhead equipped railgun and the machine guns in your hands. I'm pretty sure this is going to be one of those, like, you use it, you take that strike pose, you can just start firing everything in front of you. Cool beans. B power, D pierce does, you know, that's kind of the standard that we see on welfares. Physical shot, it's got a low cooldown. On paper, sounds great. In practice, though, there is some questions to be asked. What are the range of the projectiles? Is it something that you can easily interrupt? Is it easy to dodge the projectiles? Like, is there any soft homing on them, or do you just kind of fire and start? There's a whole list of things that kind of need to be answered. On paper, looks good. I'd have to see the animation to really give a good judgment on it, though. Alright, statistically, again, token melee, not even going to bother. And then for shot attack, we're looking at about 1850, 900, kind of in that bracket. For a backpack, good numbers. Very good numbers. Long range. Ooh, high firepower. All right, so that comes out of left field. High firepower is one of those really nice kind of like build agnostic traits. You can do it on a shot build. You can use it on a melee build. Doesn't matter. Boost both. Available on hundreds of parts in this game. No issue finding enough high firepower stuff to make it work. And that's for like all types of suits. All, like, it's crazy how available that tag is. That's really nice. Might be worth running to deal with counter EX skills, but there are probably better options. That's a valid point. It is wise to keep in mind that we do have a good handful of counter EX skills these days, so cutscene bindables do have their own inherent risk depending on what you're fighting. You could just find yourself countered and smeared into a stain. Using EX skills that do a lot of damage without locking them into a bindable animation, therefore triggering the counter EX skills, viable. All right. Check out the weapons, the assault knives. When in desert category, initial EX skill charge boosted by 25%. So the desert, and in general, all of those map trait tags, so the 4 line of tags, you guys know what I'm going to say. I don't like it. I find that it's just not really a good tag to be building around. One of the core issues with it, and honestly one I think they really need to address, is that up until now, we still haven't been able to really control the maps that we play on as we're doing content. With that in mind, we don't have the ability to activate desert every single time we're playing on a map, meaning this trait wouldn't activate. The 4 line of tags wouldn't activate on the majority of content. Once they give us the ability to have more control over the maps that we play on, I can see them being pretty useful, but for now, double whammy. This suit, even though desert would work as a tag, none of the parts have 4 desert on it. This seems like a very interesting distinction to point out when this weapon requires desert category as one of its traits, and it doesn't have 4 desert anywhere on the suit. I think this is the first time we've seen this, where one of the part traits is asking for a specific map type, and the suit doesn't have any of that map type on it. Just an interesting observation there. The initial EX skill charge boost of 25% is solid. It's a very high modifier, but the desert category is very restrictive. Haven't played in an eternity. Miguel, I can understand that. It can be difficult once a game gets to a certain age to turn it on and actively play it. I find myself even these days straining to play mobile games that I've had for a long time. And it's mostly just because the content's kind of gotten repetitive, tedious, what have you. Alright, like Fate Grand Order. I barely play it anymore. New chapter comes out, I'll burn it out in a day. Events, I'll like last minute farm it, I don't really care anymore. And outside of that, I just convert all my AP into apples for like lotto events that I never play. So, I kind of understand that. It can be difficult. They need to breathe new life to kind of bring players back, High firepower is probably the best secondary tag in the game. I still call it tertiary, Alex, because you got your primary tags, 2 of them, right? You got first shot, right? You got commander and ace exclusive, and then you have your 3rd slot open, that tertiary tag. 2 primaries, then a tertiary. Secondary works. I just go with 3, tertiary. I'm probably wrong. I also don't care. Alright. I should look at the stats for these knives. Statistically, it has some token shot attack, like 200 change points after carryover. Cool. 3,500 melee attack. Probably puts them in like the top 10-20% bracket, I think, as far as damage goes. We've had melee and shot weapons both break 4k natively. So 3.5ks. Okay. Long range transformer. And lastly, the Floros machine gun. Physical ranged weapon magazine boosted by 35%. So all this means is the neutral shot attack that you can do, just pressing the shot button on your screen while you're playing. That weapon has a 35% boosted magazine if it's physical. Most, if not all, IBO weapons are physical. Lots of other weapons are physical as well. It can be hard to tell without using the weapon in the game. They're either going to be firing beams or they're going to be firing physical. Honestly, not a great trait. You don't, unless you have some crazy build where you're doing nothing but you have an SMG 200,000 shot attack or something, and you just have a 400% boosted magazine to just sit there and DACA the entire time. Sounds really funny now that I kind of lay it out. Other than that, though, you're really just not going to see a lot of returns from this versus something that boosts your damage, boosts your EX skill output, whatever. Cooldowns, you name it. I only come back if there's 00 suits, check them in and out. Yeah. Hey, you know what? Man, I'll tell you straight up. if there is something that keeps you coming back to the game, I think that's what really matters. Myself, I love checking whenever there's news for the new suits to see if there's a new Kshatriya, to check if the Amaterasu's been added, to see if there's some new like seed suit being added in, right? And if there is, cool. Hey, I got hard chips. Let's party hard. If not, I get to keep saving. I'm okay with this. So, yeah. What happened to a new Gundam game that's coming to mobile? I haven't done anything in a long time. So I obviously can't say much because I don't know much. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But it's coming. That's pretty much it. As far as I'm aware, it hasn't been canceled. Still being plugged away on. Yeah. I really, really, really hope that if they do another CBT or an OBT this time, that I can actually play it, and that they have the Canadian region added in as like one of the safe regions to actually play it, because that was really depressing to get access to it, and then it's just like, oh yeah, we just totally forgot you weren't American, so can't play it. Ugh, pains me. I'm just waiting for the new aerial rebuild. Tons of WFM suits, yet they only released one over a month ago. They released that one as like a promotional piece, right? You got to remember that. They love doing their like crossover things to promote new anime, movie, and whatever, right? They did the same with Hathaway and some other stuff. As Witch of Mercury gets closer to its wrap up, they'll probably start pushing more of the suits out. And I can see why they would be delaying it, right? You got to keep in mind when it comes to like anime, some people don't watch it right away every episode as they're airing. So if you release suits into the games, you could potentially spoil content. For example, myself, I'm waiting for it to finish airing, and I'm going to sit down and binge the whole thing at once. With the exception of if there's some kind of collab or something for a game that I have to, don't have to, but I want to do coverage for or something, sure, I'll sit down and just binge it then. But until that gun is pushed to my head, I'm more than happy to wait for all of it. And there's like multiple reasons for that, right? The primary one, though, is when it comes to sitting down and watching any TV show, whether it's anime, live action, whatever. I like watching all of it in one go because, one, it allows me to really absorb the show, right? I don't have to try to remember little details week to week. I don't have to kind of keep track of all these different story threads in my head at all times. It's just sit down, watch it, enjoy it just sequentially. Everything is fresh in my head as I go, and it's a lot like watching like a feature-length film, right? Same idea. Sit down, popcorn, drinks, just watch the whole thing, enjoy it for the spectacle it is. Cool. That's how I watch it. I'm not saying that's the only way to watch shows. I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. That's just how I do it. So, you know, as soon as Witch of Mercury finishes, I'll binge the whole thing. And I'm really happy that they haven't put a ton of suits into the games just to kind of keep that surprise for me. So when I do eventually sit down and watch it, I'm still like, oh, damn, that's a dope suit. Instead of seeing it in here and then seeing it in the show and being like, ah, yes, I know you. Right? How are you avoiding all the WFM spoilers? So, Jun, there's this really funny thing. If somebody spoils me on WFM, I get banned. I also go out of my way to make sure that I'm not participating in forums or places where people would natively discuss things that are spoilers. All of my friends know I'm not watching Witch from Mercury until it finishes, and they're thankfully respectful of that. I've stayed away completely from the mecha boards on 4chan during the duration of this because I know I'll be instantly spoiled. I've stayed away from pretty much all Gundam discussion groups during this entire period because I know I'll be instantly spoiled. Yeah, it's difficult. All right, and that's actually one of the reasons I'm really happy I got my hands on Engage early, because I know that there's already tons of spoilers all over the internet for the game. People have spoiled the plot, all the characters, everything. You know what? Power to them. Whatever makes you happy, I guess. But as I've got my hands on it early, and I've already played a significant chunk of it, barely anything is really a spoiler to me at this point, so I can actually kind of browse the internet. I don't like spoiler culture. That there used to be that whole, like, wait 2 years before you start spoiling content for stuff as kind of like that safe word kind of deal. People just don't do that anymore. They'll, like, 0-day leak everything that they can. And again, that's fine. A lot of people like that. I just remember back when it was like, oh yeah, we're not going to talk about story content for, like 3 to 4 months. Give people time to play the new game or watch the new show or whatever. And then, a couple of years later, that's when you see the in-depth, like, total breakdowns of things where they talk about every single thing in bullet point form. These days, that stuff comes out 2 days before whatever it was is supposed to release, and people are like, yeah, I love all these spoilers. It's, okay. It's just not for me. Yeah. But anyways, that's kind of besides the grand point. I think it's probably been like 6-7 years now that I've kind of consumed most of my media in that way, with the sole exception of a couple of TV shows that I used to watch with my dad when I went to visit him. I think that's the only time I've really sat down and watched stuff in like week bursts. Right, and it was because I was visiting my dad, right? So it just gave us something to kind of watch and enjoy together. But given a personal choice for stuff, right, I appreciate, for example, Netflix putting all of their stuff up at once for a series that allows me to just binge it in one go. It also means that people that like watching it, they have like an hour slot a day to watch something, they can watch it at their pace as well. Right? I find that that's the kind of the best approach for these things. I know why stuff gets released an episode per week, builds the hype, gets content out to people, everyone gets to enjoy it, but I don't know. I remember when you used to stream, you'd have people spoiling all the new suit stats and EX skills. People still do that here and there, though. It's a lot rarer, thank God. But you'll still have people, brand new patch releases in the first 5 minutes, be like, oh man, I can't wait for you to look at this part. The EX skill is so cool. And it's like, I'm really happy for you, dude. I'm glad you're enthusiastic about this stuff. Like, non-ironically, I'm really happy that there's still enthusiasm pumped into this game after so long. But let me take it at my own pace, thanks. All right, let's get back to this, because there's a lot of stuff to go over, at least to what I understand, so I don't want to delay this for too long. All right, the Flores machine gun. I did talk about the trait. Like I said, not terribly useful. You're going to stop using neutrals after a short while anyways, and the magazine boost really isn't that big of a deal. Statistically, 4100. It's a little weird when you think about it. The melee weapons on this shot-centric suit is much stronger than the weapon. Wait. Brain fart. The weapon was 3500. This is 4100. Don't mind me. Clearly, I'm still asleep in my messy bed. Anyways, 4100. As I mentioned when we were looking at the melee weapons, 4K plus is typically what we see on like really high-end post-power creep weapons, especially on welfares. So this is one of them, 4100. That's a guaranteed top 1% as far as offensive stats go, and even gets a further boost due to the shot defense carryover. Minimal, it's like 4200 change or something, but still nice. So offensively, extremely powerful for a welfare weapon. Long-range Gundam type word tags, both workable tertiaries, dope. Overall, the Gundam Floros here. If you're a brand new player to GBM, someone that started recently or you don't have a very strong selection of suits, I highly recommend picking up as much of this as you can. Statistically, it is extremely powerful. Outside of the stats, it looks snazzy. The tags give you a lot of good tertiary options, and it does have a very powerful set with its Awakening and Torso EX skill right there to just kind of slap stuff for you. The ranged weapon helps a lot too as a new player, gives you a solid, powerful neutral attack to use on your shot machine. I have no real complaints about this suit. Good stuff. I'm still using neutral with the lack of skill cooldown. Exactly. Once you get to a certain point, though, Scarlet, you're going to find that your neutrals do fall off. And even though you're still hitting for a good chunk of damage, EX skills will just do a lot more for you. What I would recommend, if you don't have a good skill cooldown setup yet, look into stacking magazine EX skills. For example, one of my primary suits that I like to use when I want to spam stuff, it has 3 magazine skills on it. I literally just get to sit here and go 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, and I'm just firing all sorts of magazines across the map, killing everything in one hit. Magazine EX skills don't actually go into a proper full cooldown state until the ammunition is completely emptied. Obviously, if you have like your cooldown reduction, it'll reload faster, but even a base reload on a magazine EX skill is within like a second and change anyways. So frankly, I think it's a really good like starting point to work with. Each to their own. All right. So the Floros. Nice. All right, let's take a look what Gatch has got for us. I have 3 melee yeet skills with 75% cooldown. It's like a machine gun. Yeah, I know. Skill cooldown is probably one of the most ridiculous things in this game just because of the crap you can get away with after a certain point. Arena suit. Oh, did we get a new arena suit? Alrighty. Hey. That's going to be exchange permanent arena. The Shenlong, eh? Endless Waltz Shenlong. Okay. We'll start from the top on this one. I'm going to assume that this doesn't have any alterations. I don't see 7-star on this. Okay. Head-mounted Vulcan. Alright, looking away from that. The head-mounted Vulcans are just not great. Even after the rebalance, just not... No. Alright, statistically. Now... Arena suits are a little different than welfares. Bracket-wise, they kind of fall into the same area, but due to the availability windows and other factors, they're like 2 completely different beasts, which can make it very hard to, form a solid opinion. Hold on, I'm just starting another Grand Blue raid here. Thinking that, brief interlude, for anyone that plays Grand Blue Fantasy, I am 1 item away from finishing my blue skin. And if you know what that is, I hope you understand the suffering. For those of you that don't, bless your souls. Don't touch Grand Blue Fantasy. It will take your life away before you know it. It's bad. Anyways, GBM. So, Shenlong Gundam, arena suit. Let's take a look at the head. The head-mounted Vulcan, like I said, not great. Head-mounted Vulcans suffer from just very short range. They don't do damage. They're meant to kind of reduce the enemy's resistances and defense, and if you hit enough bullets, stagger them. But there's just so much better you can use for one of your 3 EX slots. Statistically, we're looking at about... 1600, 1700 or so melee attack for a head. That's a lot. That's packing a ton of heat. Typically, we would see about 1200, 1300 as kind of a pretty good melee head. This goes pretty far beyond that. That's nice. Shot attack wise, definitely more on the token field, like 2200. As we typically see shot heads push up, like 3k plus, no problem to begin with. This obviously is more of a melee head. Shocking, right? The Shenlong, a melee suit? Who would have thunk it? Word tags, high firepower Gundam type. Both of those very powerful, very accessible tertiary tags. Nice. Axel Wallop. Torso. They should just make Vulcans with magazine and stack the debuff. The problem with allowing people to stack a debuff like that is, on paper it sounds perfectly fine, but in practice, you and I both know there's going to be an exploit for it somewhere where people are able to just like do something crazy with it that we can't even think about. It's just the way it is. Alright, Shenlong Gundam Torso. Self-destruct. Alright, you take 90% damage to your maximum armor, so you can defeat yourself with this. Does a lot of damage, A- power, A- pierce. It's gonna hit hard. You just kind of pretty much die using it. I wouldn't do it unless you're going for some kind of meme. Statistically, we're looking at about, 2k, 2100 melee attack kind of in there. Solid numbers, no real complaints on that torso. Shot, obviously, a lot more subdued. We're looking at like 800, 900 on there. Nice. High firepower Gundam type, cool. So far, the Shenlong, packing some heat. Those are some good offensive numbers. Arms, Dragon Fang, B plus Pierce C power. So the C power does kind of gimp this, and I mean kind of as like a lot. So the B plus Pierce will obviously help a lot with the lacking power the power output that this has, but I don't know. With the vast amount of EX skills that we have available to us from all of these different avenues, settling for something with C power is very questionable. It's not inherently terrible, as this is an arena suit first and foremost, but I think you can do a lot better than a C power B plus Pierce skill. Oh boy. Raise your melee attack by 19% and raise your melee defense by 19% as well. It's okay, but I think we can do a lot better than this. Self-destruct is basically you being, I'm gonna die anyways, might as well explode on you. So the problem with self-destruct though, right, is that you can kill yourself with it, and the AI, from what I remember, gets priority if both you and them die at the same time. So self-destruct is kind of like using Pokemon rules. You really don't want to do it unless you really need to take down whatever you're fighting and something else can continue to take you to victory, because that's a lot of self-sabotage there. A lot of it. It also locks you in the animation. Yeah, self-destruct's a meme. That's what it boils down to. If you can make use of it, power to you, man. Alright. Legs. With Lance category equipped, EX skill cooldown reduced by 20%. We do have a good amount of lances in this game now. Some of them very powerful, some of them not so much. So you do have some options. EX skill cooldown reduction of 20% is a very high modifier. I believe the third highest available we have in the game. And the other two highest mod available are really limited in Sokai suits. So outside of those, nice. All you need is a lance. High firepower, close combat. Close combat is very, very strong and almost like core tertiary take for melee builds. It's available on almost every single Tom, Dick, and Harry melee part you can think of. Yeah, activates myriad traits. It knows its way around the game. Numerically, we're looking at about 2000 melee attack, kind of around there. Yeah, 1900, 2000. Air legs, that's really good. Ooh, oh boy. Shot attack, token, like 600 or less. Okay. Overall, nice legs. Backpack. Crimson Stinger. B plus power, D pierce, low cooldown, raise your melee defense by 19%. On paper, this looks fine. However, in practice, I'm pretty sure this is one of those that has a really bad animation that's really easy to just dodge, get out of, what have you. So with that in mind, no. High firepower, close combat, okay. And then statistically, we're looking at what, like 2,000 melee attack or so. Yeah, no, the Shenlong packs a lot of melee damage. Like, they're all of its parts so far really, really good for melee attack. All right, let's check our shield. Shield throw. Hey, wow, this is miserable. A plus Pierce C power. We have a veritable slew of yeet skills at this point where you do very much the same. You throw something, whether it's a shield, a weapon, what have you. Almost all of them start at B power. Some of them are a little lower. Some of them are much lower in this case, right? Like this one here. Some of them are a little higher. The A plus Pierce obviously will help offset the lacking power by a good margin. However, we do have a very accessible 4-star pick ticket system these days, so even brand new players can just kind of go into that 4-star permanent pool and pick stuff. With that in mind, in that pool alone, we already have a lot of parts that do this, but better. So, I really... High firepower, close combat. Okay. And then statistically, we're looking at like 1,500 or so melee attack, which for a welfare shield is ridiculously high. And then some token shot, like 200 change. Okay. And the weapon, our lance. When armor is 10% or less, enemy all damage plus 50%. So this is most likely meant to work in with the torso self-destruct. You use it, and then you get a 50% damage bonus to your enemy. That's very cute, very interesting. However, the fact that you have to play at 10% or less armor is not only risky, but it also means that in a lot of content where, you know, you're going to end up in kind of medium high end at some point where you're chasing time, remaining armor, all these things. No, you don't want this. If you want to use it, power to you. Do not ever let me tell you how to play a game. That's a terrible idea. You play games how you want, you have fun with it. But in my opinion, I look at this and I go, sounds neat on paper, but in practice, it's just a big risk. You want to run the risk? You do it. Go right ahead, champ. High firepower, close combat. All right. And then statistically, well over 4K, actually. We're looking at like 4,300 or so, 44. Nice. Very interesting suit. If it was a welfare, it would definitely rate very, very high. As an arena suit, it ranks really, really high. Just numbers-wise for a 3-star suit, does really good work. Okay. Not amazing, not bad. It's okay. All right. Now let's go to the gacha and take a look at that, shall we? So, we have our Astray Red Dragon, which has a 7-star, so I'm going to look at that in alteration. We have Mr. Bushido, was it? That's this guy's name? Yes, good. I'm not crazy. So let's take a look at you, Mr. Bushido. You are a 4-star pilot. So let's look at those numbers. He is an outfighter. Trait with dual saber category. Equipped EX skill cooldown reduced by 20%. Okay. It's on brand. The EX skill cooldown reduction of 20%, like I said, outside of limited Sokai, that's pretty much the highest you're going to be looking at. Dual sabers are dime a dozen, very powerful ones available as well. No real complaints here. Cool. There was a 4-star, but the banner ended a few hours ago. Oh no. How will I ever sleep at night with less to review? Oh, that's right. I'll be able to sleep tonight. Alright. High firepower, high mobility tags, very workable tertiaries, gives you some options. Statistically. Has a good amount of armor. Okay. So, breaks 3,000, like this, what, 3,100 or so melee attack. And then for shot, yeah, it's like 1,550, 1,600, kind of around there. Obviously, more token shot than anything makes sense. He's an outfighter, focused a lot more on swinging around weapons than he did shooting things. Honestly, I think that's kind of better for Celestial being, all things considered. Yeah, all right. Not amazing, not jaw-dropping, but then again, he is not a build project pilot. He's not really an ultra-limited pilot or anything. He's just there. With that in mind, breaking 3,000 of your primary stat before you add in class modifiers is always really nice. We have seen higher offensively statted options than him, though. The part trait, very nice. Dual sabers, easy to get. Good EX skill cooldown reduction. The tags, workable tertiaries. All in all right. Nice. Let's see, what else we got? Nothing? Oh, wow. All right, let's go check out those alterations. Now, I believe... Because, wait a second. How many of these are new? I have 8 new alts. I'm assuming it starts from the TR6, goes to the Tri-Age. Did I cover the Banshee Norn? I can't actually remember what the last alterations I talked about were. Let's see here. Let's see, what was the last live stream? Entered atmosphere, cool. Oh, hold on. YouTube, as I'm looking at my YouTube channel, decided to let me know I need to read the updated terms of service. Just give me a few seconds here to make sure nothing crazy happens. Yeah, okay. This is that change I was reading about happening before. Yeah. It's all about the shorts and short feed stuff. But, yeah, it doesn't terribly affect me. Okay, let me double check here where he's dropped off. Did the chat freeze? So the chat plugin I've been using has been a little bit on the finicky side recently. It doesn't seem to like reflecting the chat one-to-one. It really likes kind of doing its own thing and kind of updating in batches. I think for the next stream I do, I'm just going to use a custom handwritten solution for it, honestly, because I hate having to deal with the chat not properly working. That'll also give me a lot more control over the chat itself. So yeah, that'll be an interesting little side project to do. Anyways, I have the previous stream open. Let's scroll on over to alterations and see kind of... Let's see, it was me looking through all the new gacha stuff. Alright, here's where I looked at the alterations. So the last one I looked at was the Turn A. So the Banshee Norn and the Astray Red are new over here. And then over here, Victory Gundam was the last one I looked at. Yeah. So these 6 plus the Banshee and the Astray Red. Alright. Oh boy. This is gonna suck. But I've done this to myself. Let's suffer together, guys. Oh yeah, actually thinking about that. So when I got sick last week, it started off as like a common cold, you know? Congestion headaches, the post-nasal drip caused the throat to be really glassy and sore. Not great, right? There was no way I was streaming like that. Just not a hope in hell. Fast forward to the weekend, Friday into a Saturday. I had been, oh God, what was I? Yeah, right. So I'd gone out to the corner store to grab something to drink because at my corner store, where is it? It's on the couch. That's not going to help. And I don't have it sitting next to me. They have this unbelievably good fruit juice. It's like I can't remember the brand name. They have a whole bunch of different flavors of it. Relatively low sugar and calories in it, but it's just an amazing fruit juice for $1 to what you get. I like getting a glass bottle of it every time I go. While I was there, on the shelf, I spotted a thing of chocolate milk. And I'm like, I got a pretty bad cold, but you know what? Chocolate milk sounds pretty good. It's been a couple years since I had a nice little carton of chocolate milk just kind of sip on and enjoy. So grab it, some other stuff, come back to my house, crack it open, take a sip, and my brain just goes, hey man, you drank some water just now, what's up? And I had realized I couldn't taste anything. My chocolate milk tasted like water. My fruit juice tasted like water. All of my, the diet soda that I had was literally just fizzy water. And I'm like, was it not actually a cold? And I was like in a panic. So I spent the next couple of days experimenting with, I had like super spicy food. I had, I ordered just like some cheap pizza, some pitas. Right? I just tried different things to see what was going on, see if anything could kind of get past this. Couldn't figure out capsaicin. My mouth just did not register it whatsoever. My nostrils did though. I could feel them kind of starting to get runny after eating really spicy food, but couldn't feel it. So here's me sitting here, right, like, oh crap, did I get the big C? Like, oh no. And then earlier, not earlier, like mid-ish yesterday, it just kind of all cleared up, and now I can taste things properly again. But over the weekend, me and my Final Fantasy guild did a what we internally call Warrior of Liquor. We do map runs. If you've ever done treasure maps in Final Fantasy, that's what we did. If not, you pretty much get a map, you decipher it, find out where it is on the map, you fight a bunch of monsters, and you run through a heavily RNG-centric map, get loot, money, all sorts of stuff, based on how lucky you are, effectively. A whole bunch of gambling. Welcome to the fun. But there were a whole bunch of drinking rules with this one. That's what made it big. I found out I couldn't taste alcohol, and it was really sad for me. I went through most of this bottle, and like I started the weekend up kind of, I think, around here or so, like relatively high up. And I plugged away that much, just like water. And it was really sad, because, yeah, I was really looking forward to that, but, yeah. Anyways, everything's good now, and that's all that matters. Yeah, it was a weird weekend. I don't think I've ever eaten spicy food before and not tasted it. It was an experience. Also, I don't think I'll ever be able to really forget it, but when I was eating one of the pitas, it was a steak and lettuce setup. I can't remember the exact name of it. But I never quite realized how weird the texture of steak is when you can't taste it. I never quite registered how weird it was until I just lost that sense. I'm eating this and it's like, oh yeah, soft tortilla, crunchy lettuce, and meat. It was weird. We didn't. Oh no, I completely felt the alcohol, Victor. That was the danger of it. I was drinking it, and it was like I was drinking water. I couldn't taste the alcohol bite, nothing. I couldn't smell anything, right? So it was literally just like a glass of water, right? And I'm drinking it. But I definitely got a little bit on the buzz side from that. So if anyone ever gets the big C, don't go near the alcohol, man. Have a bad time. Not because it tastes bad or anything, but you're not going to realize what you're doing to yourself. All right. Anyways, let's get cracking on this. Finish up these last few bits. I did want to play some more Engage today, but I don't think that's in the cards. I am probably going to do a GBO stream tomorrow. I'm going to see if I can hook a couple of my buddies in with me. And then maybe some of the other content creators as well, but I'll play that by ear. And I'm still debating on Engage. It's rough. I really want to stream Engage and talk about it, but I also know that if I do it, I am screwed. Yeah. I'd like to avoid that fate. Anyways, Gundam. So, for anyone that hasn't seen me do alterations before, you're in for a not treat. Anyways, due to the way the alteration works in this game, you spend a bunch of resources, you change the primary setup of a part, you add a new part trait, you change the way the EX skill works in terms of damage, pierce, the text for its buffs, whatever, something changes. The stats obviously increase when you alternate a part, but one thing to keep in mind is sometimes the stats are going to be drastically different from what you had and what you're going to get. I always recommend whenever you're going to alternate a part, make sure it conforms to what you're expecting so you're not wasting these materials. Obviously, you know, based on how long you've played the game, how much of the materials you have, doesn't really matter, but I still say, you know, just be safe with it. Don't waste materials on stuff, you know, you realize later, like, oh, this isn't what I wanted or whatever, right? I don't look at stats during this. Safe to assume that the numbers are always going to go up in some fashion, or, you know, like I said, they get redistributed in a weird way, but that's very rare, very rare. The EX skill / part trait will always see a change, so I will for sure look at that. And then word tags I kind of ignore because, you know, they don't get changed by alteration either. Yeah. I should script this at some point so I can say the same thing consistently. Okay. Let's take a look at our Woundwort head. Oh, is that a head-mounted Vulcan? Well, it's also known as me going to the next part. That's a skip. Even altered, you can't save that. Alright, torso. While mid-range, EX skill damage taken reduced by a flat number. Useless. When attacking with a beam, enemy EX skill damage plus 50%. So that's actually a pretty powerful second trait. So what this means is any beam. So this means EX, though, is what gets the boost. So let's look at just EX. That means your beam melee. That means your beam shot. Both of these categories get a 50% EX skill damage boost on the enemy. The way that the damage formula works, this is equivalent to EX skill power boosted by 50%. It's just worded differently. It's also put into a different position inside of the battle formula. Meaning, if you had on your 8 parts in your suit, including your pilot, right? If you had all of them, this, enemy EX skill damage plus 50%, you're going to be doing a lot. Don't get me wrong. But if you took about half of them and put it into the EX skill damage plus 50% camp, you'd actually do more damage at the end of the day because of the way the battle formula works. So with that, it's nice to sprinkle in a few of these new options when they become available on stuff for whatever you're doing. 50% is a crazy high modifier. Beam is a very easy thing to get the requirement for because, again, you have beam shot, you have beam melee. So it doesn't matter what kind of build you're doing, you'll have access to this actually activating. With that in mind, that's actually a very solid alteration for a non-limited Sokai part. Cheaper to alternate than one of those would be, and you get a baller 50% boost. It's good stuff. Arms. Composite Shield Booster, A+ Pierce, A Power, Melee Attack up 24%, Shot Attack up 34%. So this does a lot. A plus Pierce A power. That's going to ignore a very large amount of the enemy's defense and resistances. The exact amount, not really 100% sure on that one. A power, gonna do a lot of damage out of the box, and the A plus Pierce ignoring all of those resistances and defenses, gonna hit all the harder. It is a bindable cutscene skill with a cutscene cooldown, so it's that alone also guarantees gonna hit pretty hard. But on top of that, you do get a melee attack boost and a shot attack boost for your squad, so this does a little bit for everybody. As it is not a limited or Sokai suit, the 34% on the primary stat, or maybe secondary, but 34% and 24%, nothing to scoff at when you think about the amount of damage this is going to do. Overall, that's a very nice little EX skill right there after the alteration. Alright, legs. With technique attribute, shooting crit rate boosted. Unfortunately, crit rate in this game is a meme. Don't invest into it, it's not worth it. While transforming, EX skill cooldown reduced by 23%. Transformer, that's available on a ton of parts, very accessible. EX skill cooldown reduction of 23%. Outside of limited and Sokai seeing this, that's really nice. But it is an alteration, so it is kind of more of that premium upgrade kind of thing going on. Very nice second trait, accessible for the activation requirement, and the 23% cooldown is stupidly good. Unfortunately, the first trait is a complete wash, so you're effectively investing in this purely for the second trait, unless they rebalance crit. And I really hope they don't, because then all of a sudden a bunch of bad parts would become good parts, and I'd have to go back and look at them. But I wouldn't. Alright, backpack. When armor is 90% or more, enemy shooting damage plus 35%. So this is pretty straightforward. As long as you have more than 90%, if you have 90% or more of your health, so, you know, you don't take damage, 35% bonus shooting. Cool. First trait, before 15 seconds pass, shot power boosted by 30%. So this is actually a very nice kind of symbiosis going on here. For the first 15 seconds of a match, as long as you have 90% or more armor, you're getting a 30% shooting power boost in that first part of the battle formula and a 35% shooting damage boost on the other side of the formula. This is a very powerful combination together because both of those modifiers outside of limited and Sokai are effectively the highest we can reasonably expect to see with what's currently available in the game, what the wound ward is, and all these other things. This is really nice, honestly, for what this part is. Nice. Obviously, you're going to benefit a lot more if you're able to clear content quickly from that, but even then, you still have access to the second trait, which is a little more permanent as long as you stay healthy. Alright. Now, let's look at the Composite Shield Booster proper. While mid-range, enemy shooting power reduced by 30%. Alright, mid-range is a relatively accessible word tag. It's not on a ton of really high-end parts, but still available enough. With that in mind, the shooting power reduction will only affect the part, or the suit that this part is on, so that kind of limits things around a little bit. And then the other one, while mid-range, again, enemy melee power reduced by 70%. So you're looking at a shooting power reduction and a melee power reduction. Like, whatever suit this is put on is going to have a good amount of defense against stuff, but the mid-range requirement, as well as it only affecting the suit it's on, does kind of limit a lot of stuff. Inherently not terrible, but it's definitely like a situational kind of upgrade, you know? Overall, the Wound Wart did see a really nice boost in most of its passive traits. The EX skill on the arms looks pretty good. Alright. Alright, now the heavy arms. Alright, I'm gonna go grab another glass of water because I am really thirsty from all this talking, and yeah. Be right back. Alrighty. Let's get back to the suffering. Okay. Heavy arms. Ugh, I saw some crap clogging my nose. There we go. Okay. So, while long range, long shot attack raised by 20%. So what this means is while you have the long range word tag, which is relatively accessible, your long shot attack. Now what this means is the distance between you and your opponent when doing neutral attacks. If you look at the first video I did on GBM, I actually do talk about the reticle and how it changes based on your distance between you and your opponent. When you're really close, the reticle will look a certain way. That's for short attacks. When you're at or close range, whatever. When you're at a medium distance, the reticle will change again. That's for that medium range. And then again, when you're really far away for long range, and completely disappear when you're far enough away for you can't hit them from here. This only refers to when you're in that long shot bracket range, and it increases that attack by 20%. Good if you're using neutrals a lot from a long range. Outside of that, though, you're not really going to see any benefits from this. The second one, long shooter job, initial EX skill charge boosted by 20%. Long shooters are a dime a dozen, a ton of really powerful ones, very accessible job license. The initial EX skill charge boosted 20%, solid high number. Unfortunately, I don't think that first trait really makes this worth investing into, because that second trait, it's nice. It's not amazing, considering that, and the first trait being kind of meh. Not really what I would invest in, but you do you. Maybe you love the heavy arms, in which case, like, go ham. Alright. Torso. Chest-mounted Gatling and machine cannons. A- Pierce, B- power, low cooldown. This is just a DACA. It just fires everything you got. If I remember correctly, there's some like micro homing on the missiles and stuff. It's okay. It's just a quick mag dump. The numbers on paper here look great. A- Pierce, that's a lot of ignore. B- power, that's on that just barely acceptable cusp. Should be anyways. Keep in mind, with these letters, they could be very, very close to the next letter up or very, very close to the next letter down. So this could be a C+ skill. You know, like just above a C+ skill. Could also be just below a B rank skill, right? With that in mind, letter system, not great, and kind of leaves it to kind of interpretation. On paper, though, looks fine. Arms. I wonder if they're heavy. Ha ha ha. Micro missile, D Pierce, B+ power, low cooldown, fire micro missiles. Bog standard shot. I don't really have too much to say about this. If the missiles fly straight into and they're dumb missiles, no dice. If there's even a little bit of homing in them, great. That's what it boils down to with those. Legs. Homing missiles and machine cannon. D Pierce, B+ power. Spray homing missiles from the launcher pods on your legs. On paper, looks fine. It sounds like it had that little bit of micro homing attached to it, which is always like a necessity these days. All right. The one big issue I have when they add the machine cannon, whether it's this or the other part that had it, is the machine cannon is kind of in a class of its own when it comes to worries. How far do the bullets travel? What's the bullet spread on the machine cannon shot? Is the damage, like, with these big fire tons of projectiles things, is the damage front loaded? Is it all put in the back? Is it perfectly evenly split among all the projectiles? These things can all kind of make a difference at the end of the day. And because we don't have that type of information, they do their best to kind of obscure what they can. Yeah, on paper, it looks fine. The homing missiles is always nice to see. Backpack. Beam Gatling gun. A minus Pierce C Power 11 magazine. So this is another one of those scenarios where in the 4-star pick ticket pool, we have access to magazine skills that are better. If you like the heavy arms, this isn't inherently terrible. It's just the C power leaves a lot to be desired in terms of total output. You'll find a significantly larger damage value coming from a B minus or even a B power skill. But again, if you like the heavy arms, it's definitely usable. Keep in mind, at the end of the day, this game is not really difficult. This game has sat in the same place power requirement wise for so long now that unless you're doing like a PvP race to try to get in that top 1% bracket, or you're trying to like time attack rush certain very hard content, multi-missions or whatnot, you can use really whatever the heck you want and you're not going to find any issues, man. So at the end of the day, use what you want. Use what makes you happy. If you're looking for an easy way to clear content, something you can literally, put your head on your pillow and just like slap your screen limp wrist like and clear it, you probably want to min-max a little more than just whatever. But this is fine. Honestly, in the grand scheme of things, like, there's better available, but you can use whatever you want, really. All right. Beam Gatlings. While heavy armor, initial EX skill charge boosted by 20%, heavy armor is not terribly common, especially on higher end parts, but it is still there, still accessible. You can still get your hands on it. Initial EX skill charge boosted by 20%, as I mentioned before, for that exact same trait. That's really good. It's just kind of the availability of what it's paired with, what the activation trigger is, and all these other things. Having heavy armor being the activation, I can think of worse, honestly. Shot damage raised 20%, so you're taking 20% more shot damage with every hit. Enemy shooting damage plus 35%. This is the old trade of, you don't get hit, you do more damage. I think that's the best trade deal in the history of trade deals, because in the beginning, you shouldn't be hit in the first place, right? Okay, moving along. Let's look at our shield. With speed attribute, shooting damage output boosted by a flat number. Useless. Before 30 seconds pass, okay, shooting power boosted by 40%. That second trait, really nice. First trait, not so nice. Is it really worth investing for just the one trait? 40% boost? Maybe. If it was 50%, be a hands down no-brainer. But 40%, you could probably do better with like a more focused part, something from like the Sokai limited pool, something in the 4-star pool potentially even. But the 30 seconds pass before it actually turns off that's a lot of time. The first trait though is just completely useless. All right, let's look at the Chimaras. Oh, nice, only 6 parts on this one. I like him. All right. The Chimaras head, flash bang. Fire flashbangs. Fire paralyzes enemies for a fixed period of time. So this is definitely one of those like setup style EX skills. You can use it to interrupt something the enemy is doing. You can use it to just lock them down so you can set something up. You name it. Is it amazingly powerful and strong? Depends on how you use it, really. Is it worth investing in to upgrade this EX skill? On paper, it doesn't do anything. The power isn't changed. The pierce isn't changed. The flavor text isn't changed. Maybe the cooldown's reduced a little bit. In practice, from what I understand, the stun lasts longer. Is that worth it? I'll leave it to you. Cool. Torso. With technique attribute, EX skill cooldown reduced by 20%. Very straightforward to explain. As long as your suit is technique, so you have 5 or more technique parts put on, you get a 20% EX skill cooldown reduction. Okay, straightforward, easy enough. While heavy armor, enemy EX skill damage plus 40%. Before we talked about heavy armor, the EX skill damage 40%, cool. This is a very, again, kind of like a symbiotic thing going on here. If you're technique and have heavy armor word tag, you get a 20% CDR and a 40% damage boost on EX skills, cooldown, and damage up. This is pretty good. All right. Let's look at the arms. Slash disc, A minus pierce, B plus power. Launch a disc. So from what I understand, physical shot, this is a throwing skill. A minus pierce, we already know, that's a lot of defense and resistance is ignored, with B plus power and a low cooldown. That's a slapper on paper right there. Hey Mana, I know, right? It's almost like I had 8 suits to look at the alteration for. All right. On paper, this looks really nice. Let's take a look at the legs. God, I hate having crap clogging my nose. All right, combat knife. D pierce, A minus power, low cooldown. No. I'm reading the description. This is a bad animation, easy to dodge, easy to whiff, easy to get out of. It's just not worth it. No. Backpack. With lance category equipped, melee power boosted by 30%. Lances, as I've said before, they're getting a lot more accessible. We do have a couple of pretty powerful ones in the game. You get a 30% melee power boost for having one equipped. That's pretty standard. That's cool. When attacking with physical, squad melee power boosted by 30%. That second trait makes this very powerful to put on your support suit, so not your primary suit, but the two you may bring with you into content, as that second trait is effectively a free buff for your primary suit without requiring another part slot and without requiring you to swap stuff around. These boosting your squad stats parts are very, very powerful because it just gives you more options. When you think about it, a Gunpla setup can have your 8 parts, right? Your 5 frame parts, your ranged weapon options, and then your pilot, right? With that in mind, if every single part had at least one of these squad boosting things, that is 8 extra buff instances of anywhere from 30% to 50%. That's a lot of extra bonus. On top of that, some of them have traits where both of them boost something for your squad. You could potentially have up to 16 extra buffs on your suit outside of what it's already giving itself. That is really, really good. With that in mind, a 30% melee power boost for your squad when using physical. Okay, there's a lot of physical options in this game for melee, whether it be just a neutral weapon, EX skills, what have you. No issues there. The first trait being a lance category equipped for a further melee power boost. I have no complaints on that either. As far as things go, this backpack is a very powerful part for what it is considering the alteration. Nice. And lastly, Gungnir. Demolishing Fall. So this is a cutscene EX skill. S power, D pierce, cutscene cooldown. You get a relatively beefy heal at 58%, and you get a physical resist boost to 49%, which honestly really isn't that big of a deal to me. Anyways, don't get hit. But that S power, nice. The fact that it recovers, double nice. Overall, all right. Okay. Good job, Kamaris. You're actually pretty dang okay. All right. Let's take a look at the Hyperion. Oh, I don't like you. You have a lot of parts. All right. Middle shooter job. Shooting damage output boosted by a flat number. No thanks. And the second trait, when armor is 80% or more, all power boosted by 30%. Now that's a powerful second trait as well. As long as this part is equipped and you have more than 80% of your health, all your offensive actions are boosted by 30%. That's nice. Nice. It's a shame the first trait's a complete write-off, though. But at least that second trait almost makes it worth it. Alright, so look at the Hyperion Torso. With Technique Attribute, revive with 30% armor one time. I say this every stream, I swear at this point, but you shouldn't need guts. I don't think it's that great. And if you are finding yourself dying and requiring guts to clear content, you probably need to take a step back and kind of assess the situation, see what you're doing wrong, where you can improve. You shouldn't need to be reviving yourself to clear content, with the exception of certain cheese builds where you let the enemy hit you with something in arena to, kill you instantly and you resurrect. I don't understand why you'd want to do that, but it's technically a viable application at the end of the day. All right. And while Force Space, EX skill cooldown reduced by 20%. I've already talked about the 4 line of tags, why I'm not a big fan of them. This falls into the same purview. You just cannot pick the map you are playing on, meaning running the 4 line of tags or anything that requires a certain map category. Very risky business. All right, arms. While for space, enemy melee power reduced by 25%. Okay. Before 30 seconds pass, enemy EX skill power reduced by 45%. Alright, so this is another one of those scenarios where I look at it and it's kind of like, So, enemy melee power reduced by 25%. That's a decent enough number, a good reduction. And then enemy EX skill power reduced by 45%, a much more significant number. The problem is with both of these is, like I said previously, for a part very similar to this, it'll only affect the suit that it's equipped onto, not your allies. With that in mind, if you put this onto one of your support suits, yeah, it'll become tanky. Doesn't help your main suit. You put this on your main suit, cool, you're a little more tanky. But you've also lost a couple of potentially very, very powerful buff EX or traits, So kind of... No. The integrated part will yield itself to a lot of bonus stats. I just don't think it's worth it, though. So while Force Space and Base really mean the stage and not the word tag. So it depends on the wording. For example, this here. While for space. This means while you have the for space word tag activated on your suit. Doesn't actually mean you're playing on a map that's marked space. This just means while you are for space activated word tag. The problem is, if you're not on a space categorized map, your for space tag will only give you a 3% boost versus the full 5% boost, which, don't get me wrong, that's still a good buff, 3% to all of your stats. But considering it could be 5%, and considering you could get other word tags that boost those stats by 5%, whereas to go back and look at a previous suit that we had in front of us here in the gacha real quick, was it the gacha? No, it was the key, it was the welfare, actually, that's right. Give me a second here while I bring it up for the wording. Beast Coin, Floros, and it was you. While in desert category, this refers to the map you are actively playing. This doesn't require you to have a specific word tag active. This doesn't require anything. As long as the map you are playing on is classified as desert, this will activate. So that's kind of the importance when it comes to wording for these kind of parts. I need to go back to alteration, not here. And then back to permanent Chimaris. No, Hyperion. I believe I was on the legs? Yes. All right, job gauge increase down 10%, so that's pretty straightforward. Your job gauge increases 10% slower. Now, it should be known, I'm not a big fan of the job gauge. I think it could be way better implemented than it currently is, so to me, this is not a demerit whatsoever. It affects the job gauge, does nothing for me anyway, so I'm not losing anything. Of course, some people may disagree with me. You may even use the job gauge to complete content. Power to you. I don't like it. I don't think it can be, I think it can be used much better than its current implementation, But by no means is that, you again, don't listen to me. Don't let me tell you how to play your game. You have fun with it. That's what matters. Any game. Just, don't cheat, don't hack, be sportsman, like those kind of things. But as long as you're having fun, that's what matters. Yeah, no problem, Victor. I don't mind clarifying that kind of stuff. Alright, mid-shot attack raised. Did I did. 14%. That's just a weird percentile to be boosted by. Typically, it'd be 15%, 20%, a nice, healthy, rounded number. 14% is a little weird. Anyways, job gauge increased down 10%, mid-shot attack raised 14%. As I mentioned before, there are the different distances between you and your opponent where your reticle will change. This is referring to that sweet spot middle shot bracket area. Now, it should also be noted, because I didn't clarify this previously when I was talking about the distance between you and your opponent, different weapons have different native bonuses based on your distance to the opponent. SMG-type weapons have a passive close-range attack bonus, so if you're in that close-range distance, it'll do more damage. Beam rifles, beam bazookas, or bazookas in general, those are mid-range, right? So when you're set distance from your opponent, that middle range, they'll just do more damage. And for long range, you got like your sniper rifles and stuff where, when you hit them, they'll do more damage. Those passes are kind of important to keep in mind because that could feed into a really weird niche build that you're doing, but it's good to know that those passive values exist. Honestly, this first trait, I think it's a wash. The job gauge increased down, although to me it's kind of a moot point. The activation where it gives you 14% mid-shot attack boost, whoop-de-doo. It's just not impactful. With machine gun category equipped buff EX skill effect up 22%. Keep in mind this game is a flat addition style when it comes to buffs and debuffs. So if you have a 24% buff to your melee attack and you have this buff EX skill effect up 22%, 24 and 22, 46. There's your math. That's all it takes. Very simple, very straightforward. 22% is a significant number, all things considered. We have seen higher in the past, even on non-Sokai limited suits, and it does require a machine gun category equipped. So if you don't have a good machine gun category weapon, or you're not really running any good buffs, maybe not. Maybe don't take this. If you have something better for the leg traits or stuff, probably go with that. A weird trait considering the Gundam uses a close range SMG. That's Bamco for you. Yeah, hey, you know what? That's just how it goes. The intern was told make a conflicting trait to keep them on their toes, and he chose the Hyperion Gundam. Sure. Backpack, Armor Lumiere. Alrighty, Awakening. So you deploy the generator on your back, you get a 20% speed boost, you get a 29% shot attack boost, and a 39% shot defense boost. Honestly, the 29% shot attack boost sounds nice, but with all the other buffs diluting it, kinda, not really ideal. This really is one of those things where if you're a real big fan of this suit or the series, go ham, use the Awakening, whatever. There's obviously better available, but whatever floats your boat, champ. That's what matters. I don't think it's that great, though. Alright. The ROM Technica RBW Type 7001. While mid-range, initial EX skill charge boosted by 12%, and as middle shooter job, all power boosted by 35%. Very interesting second trait to put on a sword, but here we are. So, mid-range. This is a word tag. As you can see in the word tag list down there, it does have mid-range on it. Your initial EX skill charge is boosted by 12%. That's a very low number, very small modifier. Is it worth it? Maybe, not really. Middle shooter job, all power boost by 30%. Middle shooters are a dime a dozen, and the all power boost is significant. It blows that first trait out of the water. This is like comparing something we got at launch versus something we got the next year on a Sokai banner. So these traits are just, the dichotomy is crazy. Neat. Very powerful second trait. And lastly, our Zastava. Middle shooter jaw, BX skill power boosted by 25%. Okay. And when attacking with beam, all power boosted by 30%. So as long as you're using a beam EX and you have a middle shooter job license active, you're getting a 30% all power boost and a 25% EX skill power boost. Nice. Honestly, that's as far as it goes. Like, the Hyperion really picked up there at the end. It's not actually a sword, it's a beam knife? Really? Like, it makes sense. They didn't really have any other weapon classification they could assign to it. At least it's better than them trying to say that this is like a blade or something, you know? Okay, back to what we were doing. Let's take a look at our good old Bond Doc. Yeehaw. When armor is 60% or more, EX skill piercing boosted by 22%. So this refers to the pierce trait of an EX skill, how much of the armor resistances it's going to ignore. 22% sounds pretty okay. However, like I said previously, the letters in this game don't really seem to correspond to actual percentage values, meaning 22% of the letter A. I'll let you explain that to me, what that actually boils down to. I'll be sitting here waiting. With that in mind, let's move right along. With power attribute, EX skill power boosted by 35%. Power attribute, pretty easy to do. Talked about that in the past. 35% EX skill power boost is nothing to sneeze at. Alright. Overall, if you get it all active, you're getting an EX skill pierce boost and an EX skill power boost. Power and pierce boosted, someone's gonna hurt in the morning. Torso. Job gauge increase down 10%. I've already talked about that. Shooting power boosted by 25%. Alright. And while mid-range, EX skill cooldown reduced by 20%. Okay. Yeah, nope, that's a decent part. I got nothing to really complain about there for what the Bond Doc is. Alright. Arms. Claw. Alright, lower the enemy's Gunpla physical resist by 29%, B minus pierce, A minus power, medium-ish cooldown. Alright, that's acceptable, I guess. On paper, looks perfectly fine. However, I feel like I'd have to see this animation go, because even though it sounds okay on paper, it's not a bindable EX skill, and it has a rather hefty cooldown, so it's nice to know whether or not the EX skill is actually guaranteed to land, or if there's a really good chance of it whiffing. Comes with an integrated shield too. Lots of numbers. Alright, Bond Doc legs. With power attribute, 28% chance not to recoil. So what this means is whenever you're hit by an enemy attack, instead of flinching backwards so they can continue comboing you, your character aggressively T-poses and goes, how about no? Not my cup of tea. I subscribe to the don't get hit mantra, but if you're someone that finds yourself getting hit, or you just kind of want to have that extra option for defense, there you go. 28% chance isn't a really large one, but okay. Shot damage raised 20%, so you're taking 20% more shot damage, and you get a 35% enemy EX skill damage boost. Okay. So you get super armor chance and an EX skill damage boost. Meh. I don't like the first trait a bunch. Second trait's pretty good though. Backpack. No. Not just T-pose mana fusion. Aggressively T-pose. Alright. While Transformer close shot attack raised by 14%, we've already talked about this entire combination, granted separately, no go. Outfighter job gauge increase boosted by 40%. We've already talked about the job gauge. To me, this is kind of a worthless second trait, coupled with a relatively worthless first trait. It's just not doing it for me. Of course, like I've said before, you know, mileage may vary. If it works for you, it works for you, and that's all that should matter. Let's take a look at our first weapon today, the Beam Saber. Before 60 seconds pass, strong melee power boosted. So, strong melee power refers to the last attack in a melee sword or melee weapon combo if you're using an infighter or an outfighter job license. These attacks can also be activated by dashing towards an opponent and hitting your melee attack button while you're dashing. That'll just cut out the middleman and go right into the third swing. Otherwise, you gotta do your first, second, and then the third one's gonna have a bigger windup. That's your strong melee attack. Not exactly the best thing to keep packing stats and buffs onto, because it does require a little more setup than EX skills or magazine skills. Yeah. And when in space category, so again, this is referring to when you are on a space map, not that you have the space word or 4 space word tag activated, melee power boosted by 30%. So as I've said, as we're still not able to control the maps that we play on, this is just not really a great... No. Alright, and those were the arms. No. Man, where did I leave off on this? I am so tired right now. Holy crap, they hit me like a truck. That was the backpack then, right? Whoa. Holy crap. My brain literally just like dumped everything I was just talking about. And it's just like, I don't even remember where I left off. I was talking about space category. So I'm going to assume I was on the Beam Saber because it's sitting there. I'm on the gun now, thanks. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm like sitting here. I took a sip of water and then my brain just went like... just dumped everything. Wow. Alright. The Bondok Beam Saber looks kind of silly. Anyways. Melee damage raised 10%. Job gauge increase boosted by 13%. I just think that's kind of a wash of a trait. With power attribute, initial EX skill charge boosted by 20%. So I've talked about the demerits of locking into an attribute type, power, speed, technique, whichever. The initial EX skill charge boosted 20% is good, but that's available on a lot of other parts that we can get easily these days that doesn't have such a requirement to it and will fit more into builds. Interesting. Yeah, neat suit. Try Age, the last one in our permanent pool of goodies. And then we move on to the 2 limiteds. And then I hop, skip, and jump into bed and die. Alright, Try Age. When debuffed, all power boosted by 70%, and while for computers, EX skill power boosted by 25%. I've already talked about the 4-line of tags, ignoring that. EX skill power boost 25%, pretty okay. Not the best. Rough activation trigger. Meh. Second trait, when debuffed. This, although on paper sounds very easy to accomplish, it should be kept in mind that the overwhelming current meta, at least I know of, is all about buffing yourself and then wiping the floor with the other guy. You'll very rarely get debuffs. With that in mind, should you ever find a way to debuff yourself quickly, cheaply, and easily, or you're against opponents that like to debuff you a lot, that second trait is kind of ridiculous. 70% all power boost, I believe, is the highest modifier that we've had for all power. And a bonkers. There's mana pulling through. There's an Awakening EX that debuffs you while buffing yourself. It's called Nitro from the Delta Chi chest. So there you go. You have a way to buff yourself while giving yourself a debuff, which will activate that 70% all power boost in a controlled way, giving you an immediate huge damage steroid. Cool beans. Or so. When buffed, buff EX skill effect up 15%. Already talked about this, flat addition, moving on. Before 20 seconds pass, squad all power plus 30%. So that's also a very powerful one. Before the so in the first 20 seconds of a match, you're looking at just a 30% boost to all power of your squad. This is something you can equip onto other suits, so not your primary, but your supporters. And that means that in a match, you're getting, as long as you're in the first 20 seconds, 60% boost if only your 2 allies are equipped with this. Could be even higher if you have it on yourself. However, that first trait, not amazing. Wouldn't be bad to put on a support suit, though, because they're there to just kind of buff, heal, whatever, take aggro off of you. They're not really there to slap stuff around. So squad all power boost, quite nice. First trait, okay. Arms. The Tri-Arm Sword, A- Pierce, B+ Power, low cooldown, and Flurry of Blows. Unfortunately, the description makes me think easy to dodge, easy to whiff. Not really my cup of tea there. I don't find those very useful. Yeah. On paper, just numerically looks fine. I'm just worried about the in-practice animation, you know? Let's check out the feat. The big feat. With speed attribute, enemy EX skill power reduced by 25%. Okay. Do keep in mind, this again only refers to the suit this is actually going to be equipped onto, not all of your suits. So that's some food for thought there. And when in space category, so again, when you're on a map classified as space, you don't need the word tag for this. EX skill cooldown reduced by 23%. Okay. That second trait in a vacuum is very, very nice to see. If you're ever in a space map, that's pretty much the go-to kind of trait there. You get a huge CDR, but the only reason you get the 23% instead of the 20 is because it's very restrictive. You have to be in the space category, which for most content, you do not have control over. Backpack. Tri-Age Eternity Shot. D Pierce, B+ Power. Cool. Pretty straightforward, low cooldown. Okay. I'm going to assume it got a general damage buff or something from that, so unfortunately when an EX skill is boosted, it can be kind of hard to figure out exactly what got changed with the alteration unless you have the parts side by side to really stare them down. Alright, Tri-Blade. Looks like something from Galaga. When in multi-mission sortie, strong melee crit, moving on. When melee attack is over 3,500, initial EX skill charge boosted by 20%. Should be noted, 3,500 melee attack is an absolute joke. You will find yourself going over that number by accident after very, very little farming. The initial EX skill charge of 20% is not bad. It is not great. It's in that kind of passable territory. Makes sense considering the activation trigger is so weak. But that first trait means you're investing purely for the second trait. Wait, it has full iframes? Are you serious? Damn. If it has full iframes, that changes a little bit of it. It's still something that you can whiff. It is still something that can be dodged out of, avoided. But the full iframes is nice to know. That can be used to cheese some special attacks. And I believe, yes, I just looked at you. So let's look at our Tri-Dods and then move on to our limited upgrades. While Gundam type, easy to find, easy to activate. Enemy strong melee power reduced by 25%. Strong melee powers, don't even worry about it, frankly. When in base category, EX skill cooldown reduced by 20%. Nah. The base requirement, again, that needs a certain map type. Nah, G. Overall, those permanent suits, some of them saw some really, really good upgrades and improvements to them. Other ones, not so much. Yeah. Alright. Alrighty. Let's look at our Banshee Norn. Now, this suit is no longer in the rotation pool, but I didn't look on it previously, so I'm going to do that now. If you missed it, it should eventually come back into the game. You just, it's got to be a little patient. Twitter video time. Did I find the video for Norn? Let me check here really quick. You're not Norn. You're not Norn. You're not Norn, but you're also no longer in the game, so I'm going to just kick you out to scroll through here and find the Norn footage. Is this it? No, because this came out on New Year's, not the 3rd of January. There we are. Why would you do this to me? I had the video, and then you closed it on me. Twitter, how could you do this? I have been betrayed. Excellent. Alright, Twitter videos! Let's go! Flashy, fierce, fits with the Norn. A combo attack, okay. Interesting. So, NTD, that's what we're looking at now. Let's take a look at what it actually does. Enter destroy mode, blah, 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 blah. Shot attack raised by 39%. You resist flinching and erase debuff effects. So it's a clear, effectively. A iron stance and a 39% shot attack boost. Honestly, for the fact that it was only available for a few days, I expected a much higher modifier than 39%, all things considered. It's not bad. It's not great. It gives you a lot of other stuff too. That's why it's reduced so heavily. It's just like... nah. Alright. Let's look at the torso. Now, which one of these... That's the backpack. Alright, here's the torso EX. That's the combo one, right? Yeah. Alright. Unleash a combo with the unicorn Gundam that has fallen from the sky. Raise 20% speed, 48% heal, 29% melee attack, and 39% shot attack, double S minus power, D pierce. So, this gives a myriad amount of buffs. You get your speed boost, a heal, melee, and shot attack buffs. With that in mind, it's still double S power with a D pierce on it. It's what we would expect from this type of suit. Lots of buffs, a heal, damage, bog standard. Okay. Arms. Treats. Job gauge increase down 15%. Like I said, to me, that's not even a demerit. Enemy EX skill damage plus 40%. Job gauge increase down a further 15%. So legitimately, I don't care. These are just free traits. EX skill damage plus another 40%. I like that. Cost me nothing, and I hit like a bigger gorilla. I like that. Very nice. Big hands. Legs. When armor is 80% or more, enemy EX skill damage plus 30%. Alright. And when armor is 80% or more, EX skill cooldown reduced by 25%. Very nice symbiosis. You get your skill damage boost and your CDR. Cool beans. Backpack. Armed armor XC double S minus power D pierce. That's our backpack here. All right. You get a 48% heal, 49% melee attack boost. All melee cooldowns down 28%, and all shot skill cooldowns down 23%. Really, there's nothing to complain about here. Double S minus power yields a heal, gives you a melee attack boost, one of the highest modifiers available in the game. I think the third highest, if not the second highest. You get a melee cooldown, you get shot cooldowns. Like legit, this is just like an all-in-one toolkit. The only thing it could really do is buff the numbers up, because it already does everything you could want outside of boosting your shot attack. Heals, cooldowns, amazing. Let's check our beam rifle. Shot damage raised 10%, so you're taking 10% more shot damage. Buff EX skill effect up 35%. As I said, it's a flat addition. 35% is a healthy addition value, so that's fine. Melee damage raised 10%, so you take 10% more melee damage. Buff EX skill effect up a further 35%. So if you're fine with taking 10% more shot and melee damage, also known as just don't get hit, you're getting a 70% addition to any buff effect that gets applied to you, just flat added on. That 49% melee attack boost we saw, yeah, add 70 to that. Nasty. That is a nasty thing there, as long as you're using buffs. And lastly, our armed armor DE shield. Now this is a magazine skill. What are we looking at here? Straightforward enough. All right. A Pierce B Power 15 magazine. That's the biggest magazine in the game, I believe. Typically caps off at 11. I think we've had one other exception that went above that. I think it was like 16 or something. So this is definitely much more in terms of like magazine capacity. Now I saw Mana said something. The shield mag is the saddest. It's just the original Banshee Norn mag with a higher mag size. And it's the same as original mag where the base is AC. Alright. Purely numerically, I don't really see much of an issue here. You got a very high pierce value for a magazine skill, a very high power value. One of the biggest magazines in the game, if not the biggest. And it's, you know, it's a magazine skill. Nice. All right. And lastly, our Astray Red Dragon. Now this one is currently on rate up. You can get this suit currently. So with this, I'll have caught up. I'm back to modern. It comes as a 12 mag at first level, but you need to alter it, which means you need the L badge. Oh, actually, yeah, it's something I should check really quickly. What's its base value here? Oh no, that's altered. I want to look at the base one. Oi. Bro, I want to be able to look at this. Is it just not gonna, I guess it just won't allow me. Curses. Yeah, so if you didn't roll on the Banshee Norn when it was up, you're not going to have access to the L badge. L badge being a requirement to alternate a suit. There is no guarantee that when a rerun comes around at some point in the future, you'll be able to obtain an L badge, meaning alternating any of the parts on the Banshee Norn is going to be excessively difficult unless you get your hands on some of the L badges. In the past, they have distributed these through very limited time events, through banners and other stuff, so it is not impossible to obtain an L badge for this if you missed the initial rolls for it. It's just going to be a very small window at an unannounced time in the future. Welcome to Gacha. Take your FOMO. Alright, a stray red dragon. Let's start with the head and work our way down. The drag head. Produce a beam antenna. Raise your melee attack by 59%. Nice. Your Gunpla resists flinching, and your melee skill cooldowns are instantly reduced by 33%. Now, it's cool to see that on an awakening. So what this means is effectively, you use like a melee EX skill or something, you pop this, 33% of that cooldown's gone instantly. You can use another melee EX skill while you wait for it to come off cooldown and drop that again for a bigger hit because it's doing 59% more melee damage. Awesome. And actually, I think I have the red dragon video around here. Work with me, Twitter. Yes. All right, let's take a look at you. What do you offer? Okay. It's a counter skill. Kind of lame, honestly, as far as counters go. Not really much in terms of animations. Okay. Anyways, the drag head. Nice EX skill. Torso. When armor is 90% or more, EX skill cooldown reduced by 25%, and when buffed, a further 25%. So as long as you're at 90% or more health with a buff, you have 50% CDR right here in one part. That's really nice. Consolidates it so you don't have your CDR split among like 9 or 10 different slots. It's all just in one part, maybe 2 or 3 more that are like this. All right. Solid. Arms. While pro tag, enemy melee damage plus 50%, and while close combat, all damage plus 50%. Alright, so if you're running pro tag, which you probably should be if you're on a melee suit, and if you have close combat, which you can definitely build around if you're currently not using, that's a lot. That's 100% melee damage and 50% all other types of damage. Amazing. Legs. That weeb slash, I love it. In case anyone doesn't know, that was not this one, but this one here. Yeah, beautiful. Ready your weapon and mow down enemies that enter your space. B Pierce S plus power low cooldown. Now, the one thing that should be pointed out, this most likely has a very small effective radius around your character, if not just a small conal in front of you. And that's why it has the S plus power, is its overall damage area is very small. On paper, looks great. In practice, you're probably going to need to practice with a little bit. I don't know if it's worth it or not. EI Slash is a passive skill needing the enemy to be in range to activate. Otherwise, you hold the pose and get flinch knocked out of it. There's some ways to make it proactive, but you need a combo with certain attacks with stuff that knock down. Yeah, that's what I figured when I saw the animation and everything and read the text. Alright. It's very interesting, I'll give it that. Like, as far as skills go, it does something new with its whole you have to be in a passive radius for me to do anything, and I don't even lock you into an animation. Neat. Alright, let's take a look at the big bad. Oh, wow, this is like a Yu-Gi-Oh card worth of text. Alright. A Pierce, A minus power, 51 seconds effect time. This is the counter EX skill in case you weren't aware. Cooldown of 41, base 11. Okay, or I guess initial 11, base 41. Neat. Okay. Activates when receiving a bindable skill. So the enemy hits you with an EX skill that would lock you into an animation. You hit him with what's about to show on the side there. Raise 40 or recover 48% of your maximum armor. That's a healthy heal. Okay. Raise your melee attack by 49%. That's a healthy buff. And you resist flinching. All in all, it's okay. A pierce, A minus power. You get a heal and some melee attack boost. I don't really have any complaints about this. My only true issue is the requirement that you get hit with a bindable EX skill. If people are smart, they're going to start moving away from bindable EXs and move more into, like the higher cinematic non-bindables, or things that just do a lot of damage that don't lock down into animations. Because the last thing you want to do is get countered and killed by one of these things. Myself, I personally just do a colony drop, the good old axis, and that's that. Because that's not a bindable. It just hits like a truck. So, anyways, not a bad counter, not an amazing counter. It's okay. Hey, Snow. Oh, the buff applies even without the animation, eh? That changes things. That means on demand, you have a heal and a buff. So it's pretty much like an awakening that also gives you the counter. That does increase its value a little bit, actually. Okay. Alright, let's check out our sword here. With blade category equipped, this sword classifies as a blade. That's the blade icon. Initial EX skill charge boosted by 30%. Alrighty. And when beam resist under 30k, enemy EX skill damage plus 40%. So the beam resist being under a specific value does have a little bit of a limitation attached to it. That's not an extremely high number. It is something you can reach without realizing it. The 40% EX skill damage is really nice. The initial EX skill charge boost is really nice. But that second trait's a little sus. Outside of that, though, it's really good. Yeah. That was my concern with the beam. Like, all these numbers, when it's like above 20k, it's like, yeah, for newer players you're gonna struggle, but you will get past that and then you're just gonna flourish. But when it's like, oh, you need to be under this amount, it's like, oh boy, that's really rough. Alright, let's take a look at our ambidextrous combined sword. Infighter job, enemy melee power reduced by 90%, and infighter job buff EX skill effect up 35%. Very straightforward. However, my issue with this is that first trait is a very defensive trait, not something that you're going to probably want to run on your main suit. Maybe one of your secondaries you need to keep alive for some kind of buff. A 90% melee power reduction is nothing to scoff at. That's pretty big. And then the infighter job for the buff EX skill effect up. Okay, but paired with that first trait being much more on the defensive side and not really feeling it. Counters are essentially awakenings at this point. Yeah, that's what I said, right? It's like an awakening, except you get a counter as well. So keep that in mind, everyone. This new wave of counter EX skills are just better awakenings, pretty much. Because not only does it give you the buffs, but it also stops the enemy from binding you. Alright, and our gun mode sword. Man, anyone feeling some Final Fantasy vibes all up in here? When attacking with physical, enemy melee damage plus 40%, and that is both traits. So as long as you're using physical, you're getting an 80% melee damage boost. This counts for EX skills, neutrals, you name it. I have no complaints. Very powerful. And it fits into the gun slot of your build, which is something that typically you don't have amazing melee bonuses for. This is one of those parts that definitely can go in there, and it would have little, if any, competition over a better melee weapon. Or, I guess, ranged melee weapon. Can you run both at the same time? That's a good question. They may, on the back end, count the counter EX skills as awakenings. Let me check actually really quick here. Backpack. So this counts as a physical melee, not awakening, because, you know, when you have an awakening skill, it has a completely different icon, and it's clearly listed as a awakening category skill. Theoretically, they should stack. Alright. So the Astray Red Dragon is ridiculous with some of its parts. The Banshee Norn is okay. It definitely has some shines in there, like some real nice, oh yeah, but kind of what we expect these days. Just 7-star power creep. Alright. Well, guys, I've had this stream going for 2.25 hours now. I am exhausted. It is getting late, and I've gone over all the new content, our new event suit, the arena suit, the alterations, the pilot. Yeah. So, for anyone that was just here for the GBM stuff, as always, thanks for coming around, hanging out, tuning in, talking if you're one of those lads. If not, that's fine. You don't have to talk to hang out. You just being here is all that really matters. I'll be doing the stream again. It should be next week, if I remember correctly. That's kind of getting back on that event schedule flow. This was done today because I missed last week due to my illness, which I brought up at the beginning of the stream. I've gotten over it more or less now. I'm just in that last little phase of recovery. Just got like a weird cough every now and again. Not a big deal. For anyone that just wants to hang out for a few minutes extra afterwards, I'm just going to kind of reiterate what I talked about at the beginning of the stream about some of the other games. So, yeah, anyone that shares just GPM, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you guys in a week. For everyone else, let's talk business. First of all, let's kill the Twitter video here so I stop having so much cross audio going on with me. Because that's the one big downside to having the headphones on, is I hear everything on my computer as well as everything from the game, which can be very disconcerting. Yeah, Alex, thanks for coming around, man. And yeah, no problem, Victor. Talk about boring. 2 weeks coming to 3 weeks. While waiting for LB Part 7 too. Strengthenings to pad the time. Yeah. So FGO's in like a really weird place currently, you know? Like, I've been waiting. So Rasputin dropped. I'm not the biggest fan of Kiritsugu. I'm not a big fan of Rasputin. I don't really like the design. I don't like the character. Nothing really appeals to me. With that in mind, thankfully I got to skip the New Year's bait. But at the same time, I'm now waiting just for LB7 content to drop, which obviously it's a problem because they really haven't said anything besides, oh yeah, guys, we swearsies, we're releasing it by the end of January. Unfortunately, in the past, FGO has said we're releasing this by this time, and then months after that, they finally release it. So I'm concerned because they don't even have a stream up yet to say, hey guys, we're going to be talking about the content coming up to finish off the story. They didn't give us any banners for the first wave. Now, to be fair, I can understand them holding back from releasing the character banners because Ascensions could spoil story content. Completely understand that. But at the same time, like, mid-November, you guys sat us down and went, hey guys, no new servants for the rest of the year. Christmas event, not happening. New Year's servant, exactly one. New Lost Belt servants, forget about it. It's like, all right, cool. So when do we start seeing new characters? When do we start seeing new events? And they're just like, we're not going to tell you. Please play our game. It's concerning. I get why they're doing it. I'm just, as a player, a little concerned. Outside of FGO, I did briefly talk about Gundam Eternal. Some people were asking some questions earlier about what happened to it. To my knowledge, it is still happening. It's still greenlit. They're just doing some stuff on their end, wrapping up whatever they need to do, signing whatever the documents they have to. I don't know what the hell they're doing. But I know we're going to see something eventually. Hopefully soon. It'd be really nice. Outside of that, GBO2 released on Steam. Now, okay. For any of you Bandai guys that are watching, I'm sorry, but I do have to kind of speak the truth here. Last summer, when you guys released that beta network test, and we were so excited. We were giddy beyond all belief to finally have this game on Steam. And we wanted to play it. And very, very soon after, you guys took the game down due to networking issues. And that's fine. Don't get me wrong. It was a network test. That is what it was designed to find. And it obviously did its job. And that is excellent. But you gotta understand a lot of the players' point of view when 6 months of radio silence later, you guys kind of Kool-Aid man into the house and go, hey guys, we're doing this beta test again. I hope you're ready. And everyone's like, oh yeah, let's do it. And within the first hour of this, people are getting more network issues. You gotta understand that really doesn't instill a lot of confidence from the player base. I am patient. I don't mind these problems. I understand why there's alpha phases, beta phases, and I am more than happy to participate in every single phase that I can to help make sure the product works well and that when it releases, it's in an excellent state. At the same time, you gotta understand how this looks. I plan on doing some GBO2 content with friends, other content creators. I'm trying to get stuff like time schedules kind of all lined up to work with it. Obviously it's a little difficult. People live in different time zones. This event happened on the weekdays instead of the weekends, so people are busy with work. And the group that I normally play games with is the same group I played Evolution with. And I brought up why I didn't quite stream that during its heydays. This guy's not exactly stream friendly. So with that in mind, right, it may be difficult to stream GBO2 with them, but I'll kind of play that by ear. I got my hands on Fire Emblem Engage early. Street date leak, I was able to get my copy. I obviously cannot play it on stream because Nintendo will drop the biggest, fattest hammer on my head, and that'll be that. And I'm contemplating if I want to stream it when the street date goes live, if I want to just do a review for it or something. But JRPGs are very subjective. Whether or not you enjoy them boils down to myriad different reasons. Maybe you like the story, maybe you like the combat, maybe you like the character design, maybe you like the world setting, maybe you just like the IP. There's a whole different list of reasons why you may or may not like something. And I don't know, doing objective or subjective reviews like that, it's always weird. Even back when I talked about different mobile games and stuff, why I was playing them, and because I did a couple of those videos way back when, years ago, and I look back at them and it's yeah, they obviously didn't age well. And that's kind of my big concern with doing any of those now. It's it's just kind of hard to pin down on games and do a good review of it that'll last, because people will watch it and go well, you say the gameplay was bad, but I love that style of gameplay, right? So is what it is. The devs tend to be silent for anything other but for announcements. Is what it is. Outside of FGO, outside of Gundam, I'm still playing Neural Cloud. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be playing it, though. I'm having fun with it, but I've noticed that I've effectively hit a hard progression wall. And it's not because I have bad units, it's because I'm relying on the game with its full auto systems. Obviously, you're going to get a lot worse returns using a full auto system in an auto chess style game, and I totally understand that. But it doesn't have proper skip mechanics. So for example, when I go and say, hey, you know, I want to run this map 15 times, it'll do it for me at a 2x speed, but it has to play through everything. It reminds me a lot of the issues I had with Arknights, where my dailies started feeling like tedious chores because I wasn't able to just click a few buttons and just skip through it. I had to sit there and let it run in the background for like 25, 30 minutes, running these long maps over and over and over and over again. All right. And, you know, typically that's not really a big deal, but considering that happened day in, day out, I had an issue with it. And that's kind of what I'm running into with Neural Cloud now, right? I log in. I hit up my Oasis, I claim all my stuff. I hit up my dorm, I claim all my stuff. I hit up the factory, I start crafting some stuff. And then I do my fragment runs, which takes, you know, 5 minutes or so for the game to full auto and for me to tap through all the menu crap and whatnot. Maybe a little less than that. Then I do my algorithm dailies, couple runs of that. Then I do my vulnerability check, which I have to manually punch through every single stage because it doesn't have like an auto clear feature, which is really weird, all things considered. And then after that, I'm sitting there with a ton of leftover keys, and it's like, all right, I guess I'll run, you know, more algorithms, see if I can get some more orange algorithms to gear my characters with. I set that to auto, and it just sits there and it runs and it runs and it runs and it runs and it runs, and then eventually it goes, hey, I'm done. It's like, all right, cool. So it just feels like I'm spending a lot of time in Neural Cloud, not playing Neural Cloud. And I feel like that's kind of that disconnect I'm getting from the game. It's like what happened with Arknights, right? I spent a lot of time with it open, playing, but not playing it. And it just felt weird to me. Versus like, you know, Pokemon Masters, log in, grab my gems, log out. Bam, 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 done. It takes seconds to do. Right? Has it skip tickets if I ever feel like actually playing the game and getting some content from an event. Tap a couple of buttons, skip 120 times, alright, cool, empty the shop, move on with life. Done. Right? Yeah, it just feels like it's taking a lot of time. I'm still playing Punishing Gray Raven, having a ton of fun with that. Really looking forward to Wuthering Waves. Oh, yes, that's another thing I want to talk about. So I don't know if you guys have been following the Wuthering Waves developer logs. One of the most recent ones they put out was talking about the ecosystem. So you kill monsters, and there's a chance for them to effectively become a collectible that you can then use and summon them to use their ability, or like an ability on the field. I love that. I love these like little collector style things. One of the big draws I had in Tree of Savior, if you remember that MMO back when it was out, I can't remember the name of the class, but it was you killed monsters and there was a chance it would drop a card, and then you could use the card to summon the monster and use it in battle. I loved that class because of that feature. So I'm looking at Wuthering Waves and I'm like, man, if you give us the ability to capture everything, we're talking like bosses too, I'll tell you right now, I don't know if I'll ever be able to put down the game. That is one of my biggest things. I know I've talked about it before, but whenever I have the ability to get a playable boss in some fashion, I am in there like a dirty shirt, man. You cannot keep me away. One of my big things right now in Final Fantasy XIV, I'm talking with my free company, we're looking at trying to do the Savage Regine for the Cerberus mount, because Cerberus is one of the bosses in there. I love the design, I love the look. Obviously it's also kind of like a prestige mount kind of thing because it's not exactly common, but I love that whole boss vibe. Right? Whenever there's a new raid that comes out and available that has a minion themed after one of the bosses, in there like a dirty shirt. Like the most recent one that we just had, I have the Halone minion, right? I love the fact that it's a boss minion. Yeah, it's my jam, right? So I see Wuthering Waves like, oh yeah, man, we got collectible mobs as you murder them. Sign me up. Yeah. So I'm really excited for that with Wuthering, but I'm cautiously optimistic because obviously, right, a lot of people are comparing it to Genshin, but simultaneously, it's a lot like the comparisons people made between Honkai Impact and Punishing Gray Raven, right? where at a very surface level, they're similar, right? They're both that third-person combat kind of game, switching your characters for combos, dodge at the right time to get bonuses and stuff at a very surface level. They're similar, extremely similar. But once you look past that very superficial layer, there's a lot of complexity in PGR that's not there in Honkai. There's a lot more casual and more casual gameplay, more how to put it. Long and short, they're two very different games, right? Once you go past that very superficial layer. Same thing with Genshin Wuthering Waves. You look at them from a very superficial level, they look very similar. They both have the climbing mechanics. They both have the same, third-person combat setup, swap-ins, a lot like PGR and Honkai Impact, right? You see the parallels I'm drawing here? But once you start peeling away that superficiality going on, that's where you see the combat system in Wuthering Waves is a lot more intricate with more options available to you. However, with that in mind, the skill floor and skill ceiling are pushed up quite a bit, leaving Genshin in that very comfortable zone where it is right now, where it's very pick up and play. Right? Wuthering Waves is going to spank the shit out of you and not give a flying fuck. Versus Genshin, where it's there to kind of keep you interested in the combat, call you along, make sure you're always kind of happy with how things are turning out. Wuthering Waves is a lot more punishing in comparison. Right? But with everyone sitting there toting, it's the Genshin killer and stuff. It's like they serve different audiences. Right? They serve drastically different audiences. It's literally the same as PGR and Honkai Impact in that sense. They serve different audiences. They are made with different concepts and ideas and goals in mind. That's fine. Right, Ether Gazer is kind of like that halfway point between Honkai Impact and Punishing Grey Raven, right? They kind of met in the middle to create Ether Gazer. And yeah, but anyways, long and short, I'm excited for Wuthering Waves. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about it because people are very, very much hyping it up to be something it really isn't. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hey, Alan. But yeah, beyond that, I think that's really it. I was excited for the Payday 3 announcement. That was really cool. I played a lot of Payday 3 back in the day. Or Payday 2. That was a game. God. The amount of time we played Payday. Oh boy. Beyond that though, there's really nothing. Grand Blue is having its Grand Fest in a few days, which I'm really excited for. Waiting for Fate Grand Order to finally drop its stream for new content because it's been a while now with no news. Yeah, and beyond that, I've just kind of dropped a bunch of mobile games. I barely picked any more up because there's just really nothing exciting out there. Did you know Front Mission Borderscape got canceled in December? I don't even know what Front Mission Borderscape is. That should tell you exactly how surprised I am. What is Front Mission Borderscape? Google, enlighten me. Oh, okay. I remember seeing a trailer for this, but I didn't know what the game's name was because the trailer wasn't in English. And there weren't any subtitles available for it. But, yeah. Okay, so one thing to point out, for me anyways, when it comes to taste in mechas, I find that armored core appearance of the suits is something I only really enjoy in Armored Core. Outside of Armored Core, I want to see different stuff, right? You have Gundam. That's its own complete thing in the corner where it can stay there. That's its own mech design stuff. Then you have Armored Core. That goes in its own corner too, right? I want to see more interesting mecha stuff. I want to see more like inspired content than just like, it's either Armored Core or Gundam. Like, it's like, give me an alternative. That's why I was really happy with seeing, you know, like artery gear, right? The game was okay at best, and the mech designs were definitely more human than mecha, but that's one of those different designs that can lead to people getting some really cool inspiration for stuff. And I'm all there for that. There was, what was the name of that other one? I even played it for a while too, and I can't remember the cursed name of the damn thing. Yeah, no, I'm drawing complete blank. But that was another one where they had the suits and the characters were in the like top half in like the cockpit area, but it wasn't like a full encasement suit. That was also pretty cool. Again, not the ideal, but can lead to a lot of really good inspiration. If Genshin was treated as anime Breath of the Wild, Wuthering Waves should hopefully be treated like anime Elden Ring. Oh, no. So something to understand, Omar. People look at the absolute surface level of stuff. A lot of people don't care to go any deeper, and it's really, really bad in the mobile game sphere because of tribalism. Right? Tribalism exists for like every single thing ever. But with mobile games, it's excessive because these people have invested money, they've invested time, they have social groups built up around this mobile game they've been playing, and Genshin is really, really bad for that. Right? When it came out and people were mocking it for being anime Breath of the Wild, they were right on quite a few counts. It definitely stole some ideas from Breath of the Wild, polished them in its own way, and created its own game. But even then, people still completely surface level, right? It's Breath of the Wild, and they just made it an anime gacha game. Even today, people still think that, and you know, it's fine. When Wuthering Waves releases, all people are going to see is, it's Genshin. Why did they steal Genshin? Why didn't they think of something original? Why would they just copy Genshin? And that's all it's going to be. It's not going to be, oh, it's the anime Elden Ring. It's edgy and tough and difficult. No, they're going to look at it and go, hey, why is this Genshin? Why did they steal Genshin? Why did they steal from Genshin? Why did they steal Genshin? Why? And that's the big issue here. You got to understand, a lot of games, mobile games specifically, that have released since Genshin Impact picked up and kind of became the big monolith that it is now. Games released after that have even the tiniest chance of threatening Genshin in any way, perceived by the player base, mind you, are completely torn down. Punishing Gray Raven is an excellent example of this. The North American launch of Punishing Gray Raven was literally just a giant, what's the word? It was just a giant FUD campaign, fear, uncertainty, doubt. For the first month and a half to 2 months, every single social media outlet for PGR was effectively astroturfed by people lying about the game, lying about events that are happening, lying about compensation, lying about future content, you name it. They just blatantly lied because they knew people would not dig very deep into double checking this. They would just take it at face value because they posted a screenshot in a language they didn't understand. And I'm not going to point fingers and say that it was the Genshin community that was, you know, a certain group of people in there that were doing it. But at the same time, almost all games that came out after Genshin have suffered this kind of crap and abuse. Especially the ones that are good. Didn't happen before Genshin. Only happened after Genshin. I'm just saying, it's a pretty weird coincidence, all things considered. Anyway, so it's nice to be optimistic in that sense. It would be really cool to see Wuthering Waves compared to a Elden Ring, because in a way, PGR is kind of the most difficult mobile game that isn't obtusely difficult. It is a game that relies on skill, all right, and a little bit of money depending on how hard you want to go through like Warzone and stuff, but end of the day, it is mostly skill-based. With that in mind, right, It would be nice if people recognized it for what it was, a skill-based game. Wuthering Waves comes out, takes the mechanics. I really hope they recognize it as a skill-based game. Unfortunately, I know for a fact it's going to spend the first X amount of weeks getting attacked relentlessly for being a Genshin clone. A certain community is going to do its best to lie to everyone in the player base to make them not want to play it, to try to kill it. It's just kind of a track record thing that's happened, and with a game that's now so similar to Genshin at a superficial level, it's really hard to think of any other result to this. Won't be as bad as Genshin, where someone will smash their PS4 in front of a crowd. So I always find those types of videos to be like super like staged or faked or whatever, because like it's not hard to go to a store and buy a damaged PS4 for dirt cheap. All right, you could go to like a pawn shop and buy a PS4 that doesn't have a working DVD drive. Probably get it for like $60. It's junk technically, unless you can repair it, right? And a lot of people don't know how to repair these things, or they don't want to spend the money to do it. So, c'est la vie. Unless you pawn it off to somebody that actually wants to fix it and get the full value of the damn thing. It's not hard to get a junker piece of hardware to destroy it. Alternatively, you may also just look at it as a net gain scenario. I spend $350, $400 to buy a brand new console. I take it out, I have my friend record a TikTok of me destroying it with a sledgehammer. I'll tell you right now, if that video is monetized and you put it on the right places, you will make way more money back from people viewing it than you spent buying the hardware in the first place. It's what a lot of people... It's the same as business cost analysis when it comes to, do we keep doing this illegal thing and just pay the fine? Or do we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars changing the process so we don't have to pay the fine? Everyone just kind of sits there and goes, well, the fine's only like, $1 million. Like, we can just pay that. We don't have to do any of this extra training. We don't have to change any of our processes. And the profit it turns, like, we don't have to do anything. It's like, all right, yeah, cool. We'll just eat the fine. It's the same idea here, right? I'll eat the cost of buying, a cup at a store because I'm going to use it as a prop in a video where I throw it and shatter it to 1 million pieces, and I'm expecting, 700, 800,000 views, which will be more than enough to pay for like a $3 glass that I bought at IKEA or something, right? So I've always found those things staged because that mentality is very prevalent and makes sense, honestly. If you're going to make money, you might as well, right? Anyways, I'm going to wrap up, guys. I'm exhausted. I've talked about a bunch of stuff. Probably expect a GBO2 stream if I can get other content creators on board. If not, I'm definitely going to be playing it regardless. I've got some Fire Emblem Engage to do. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for hanging out. All that fun stuff. As always, I will be here next week to talk about the new GBM content drop. For people that are interested in Granblue Fantasy, we have the stream happening this coming weekend. I'm not going to be restreaming it, but if you want to hang out potentially in the Discord and chat about it, we absolutely can, because I do love my Granblue. And when FGO decides to stream, if ever, I may restream that depending on the contents. Yeah, play that by ear. Anyways, peace out, guys. I'll see you in the next one.